If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm an extremely positive person. However, in order to be a well-rounded, emotionally well-rounded person, we must feel challenging emotions. And some of those challenging emotions can be challenging. Sadness, the loss of a family member, the loss of a friend, loss in general, and heartbreak. And in these feelings, we can't sweep this under the rug. We have to process it and then begin to let it go. So in today's video, I'm going to be explaining toxic positivity and how to know the difference between being a positive person or actually being toxically positive. You may have heard from friends and family some of these types of statements. The first one is, everything happens for a reason. We've probably heard that quite often. What about just stay positive? That's another one that you might have heard. Or you can choose to be happy. All of these are very interesting comments, and I think that usually most people who make these comments have decent intentions. Perhaps they don't even really know what to say in a situation that you're dealing with. However, it can actually be a form of gaslighting. And why it can be a form of gaslighting is because it can make you feel bad to have the feelings you have. So for example, if you lose a family member or somebody loses a family member to cancer or what have you, and the response is everything happens for a reason, you can see that, but at the same point, it's hard when you're going through the death at that time because we need to actually process that loss. Yes, to some degree down the road, there's that silver lining of yes, everything does happen for a reason, but in that moment of the person processing the loss of their family member, or you processing the loss of your family member, you're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to feel sadness. You're allowed to feel loss. You're allowed to feel lonely. And I feel that oftentimes when there's toxic positivity involved, whether or not it's on purpose, or whether it's because somebody doesn't know what to say, it still impacts us to some degree because we start feeling bad about not just feeling okay about things. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just get out of this feeling and just be happy? Why can't I just choose happiness? Why can't I just choose to be positive? And so the impact that it has, toxic positivity, when we look at the gaslighting principle, is that it can cause us to feel shame. And shame is one of the lowest vibrational feelings, emotions we can have, right? It's really low on the totem pole, and shame really brings us down and makes us feel even worse. So now we're dealing with this loss, and now on top of the loss, we feel shame because we're not being positive. Maybe I need to be more positive. What's wrong with me? Maybe there's something really wrong with me. I'm not being the best human I can be or the best form I can be. And so what happens is it invalidates our emotions. Our emotions aren't valid anymore. We're not allowed to feel that way. We're not allowed to feel loss. We're not allowed to feel sadness. We're not allowed to feel emptiness. What about the impact of feeling guilt? Guilt is another low vibrational thing, right? Yeah, guilt and shame, those are pretty low vibrational stuff that we can feel. And so we have that guilt of not seeing the silver lining, the guilt of not seeing, oh, well, everything's going to work out. And I think over time, many of us are optimistic. And so once we begin to process our emotion, we can get to the fact that, you know what, I see that this person lived a good life, and I see the fact that they did all these great things, and I really miss them, and I feel really sad that they're gone, but then I know and I believe that because of this person's deeds, they are in a better place. But it takes time to get there. You can't expect somebody to go from point A to point B like that. That's just not fair. And in that process of processing that emotion, when we are kind of hit with that toxic positivity, there's also that feeling of, wait a second, I'm allowed to feel this way, but now I feel like I'm not allowed to feel this way. Maybe I need to kind of close off and not express my emotions anymore. And that could be another byproduct of the toxic positivity, is when people are facing with grief and this type of feeling, they sometimes lock themselves away because when they do express themselves, they get kind of shot down for having those feelings. And I think a lot of times the toxic positivity comes because the other people don't know what to say, and they don't even know how to process that kind of feeling or emotion either. So again, we have like all this happening at one time. Another aspect of toxic positivity is what I call spiritual bypassing. And a lot of people don't really put the two together, but I think that they go together really, really well, right? So the toxic positivity and the spiritual bypassing, it's that sidestepping of emotions when we're spiritual bypassing. I'm not saying we need to wallow in our pain. I'm not saying we need to wallow in all this sadness, but we do need to feel it. We do need to feel these difficult emotions. We do need to feel them because that helps us what? That helps us grow as a human being. That helps us grow as we go through these challenging feelings. As we go through these challenges in life, it makes us feel more. It challenges us to experience these different situations. It challenges us to sit with that emotion, to sit with it, to not let it take over us, to not wash all over us and take over us, but to sit with it, to see it, to process it, to understand it, and to begin to let it go. And those are all processing of grief as well, which is very important. I mean, grief and going through these feelings aren't just when you lose a loved one. It could be the loss of, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a human, the loss of a pet, the loss of, a very loving pet. It could also be the loss of a career, loss of a job, something that really impacts you. Losing something that really impacts you and being able to express that feeling in a safe way. And so if you're dealing with somebody in your life that is toxically positive, that might not be the person to talk to about your emotions. That might not be the person to go to when you're going through things that you need to actually express and understand and let go. And it's very important to see who that is and who that is in your life, because when we open ourselves up to toxic positivity, what ultimately happens is we either get angry, like, how dare you tell me just to be happy, or we shut down. And so this is very interesting. I hope this video has helped you to identify toxic positivity. And maybe we have a little bit of that in our own self. Sometimes we do. Or maybe we're facing it with somebody in our life, a family member, a friend, or multiple people in our lives that use that toxic positivity, and they're using it on you, and they're probably using it on themselves too. Those might be the actual people that haven't really processed a lot of emotion and don't know how to process it. So there's definitely other people that you can talk to when you're going through things that you actually need to have an honest, emotional conversation. I hope that you've been able to connect with this video on toxic positivity and understanding it even better, especially if it's been happening to you. You might not even be aware of it. And so this can be very helpful to safeguarding yourself and then also understanding who you can actually communicate with. If this video is connected with you, please give us a like on this video. In the comment section below, I'm interested. What does toxic positivity mean to you? What's an example of something that someone said to you recently that you find toxically positive? If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and you'll be alerted as to new content. And don't forget to live your true life.